Hey everyone, JamieStarr here. I wanted to cover this video from Riley J. Dennis. I know they are like, and I'm using they because it's a, proper gender pronoun, although it's funny, I've always thought the multiple they, it tends to imply more than one person. When you refer to a trans person as they, I always think you're like with him, I'm talking to the man he is and the woman he wishes he was. So, or maybe, I don't know, but anyway, the trans thing is a very complicated issue. I think there are some of these people where, there probably is something they're born with, where there might be a man's mind in a woman's body. Why not? I think some of them are also suffering hormonal imbalances, and hormones play a much bigger role in our lives than a lot of people would like to give them credit for. Um, and so I think it's a very, very complicated issue. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all solution. And I do, however, want to address the concepts put forth in this video. So I'm not going to... The fact that this guy is trans or anything like that is completely irrelevant to the point he is going to try to make here and my counterpoint to it. So... Let's let the video play.
Would you date someone who's trans? Would you date someone who's black? Would you date someone who's fat? Would you date someone who's disabled? Now, honestly, I don't know what your answer is to those questions, but I've met a surprising number of people who would say no to all, or at least some of them. Their argument is that it's just a preference and that you can't control who you're attracted to. I think most of the time that this is brought up, it's in regards to race. I'll link to a couple really good videos in the description about racial dating preferences, but in this video, I want to talk about our other biases. Let's start with trans people. Would you date a trans person, honestly? Think about it for a second. Okay, got your answer? Well, if you said no, I'm sorry, but that's pretty discriminatory. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you're a horrible person who hates trans people. There was probably a time in my life when I said I wouldn't date a trans person, but since then, I've thought critically about it and changed my mind. I could...
If you're a dude and you're not willing to suck dick, you're a bigot. That's what that was, in case you missed it. And it really, it's so funny that I just sort of think, like, being fat, that's one of those things you can have control over. Unfortunately, I've had to work very hard to put on weight rather than take it off. But this pretty much just sort of like obliterates standards, basically, on some level. Again, if, I was dating someone, I knew a girl, and I'll put this out there, I knew a girl who was born, and she was missing a hand, and she has, like, up until here, there's a joint, and here's the funny part of the story. I went out to the movies with this girl, hung out with her, made out with her, I was in orchestra with her. She played violin. I didn't realize that she didn't have a hand until a friend of mine told me. Like, she was that good at covering it. She would hold a sweater over it. She would, and she was playing violin. If you're playing violin, I of course assume you have both hands. So, in some cases, it's just... whatever. Some people, I could obviously, I didn't discriminate. I was kind of unaware of it, but this was one of my best friends for numerous years. An amazing person. So it's just to each their own, Some people care, some people don't. Some people like me just don't notice. Whatever. But this whole idea that there are these deep inherent biases and we need to move past them and everything. Like, it's advocating a level of social engineering, and it's thought crimes and thought control. That's what bothers me the most about it, where it's not even them being like, well, I'm worried about you having this opinion. It's them flat out being, I'm worried about your subconscious. And it's so funny because, like, a lot of Freud's work involving the subconscious and, say, reversed messages and stuff like that was all sort of scoffed at as junk science, and now it's all these people care about is your deep inherent biases. You had Hillary Clinton try to say that all Americans are racist and then wonder why she lost an election. So anyway, I'm going to let this keep going because there's a key point.
Sit here and show you photos of conventionally attractive trans people. There are definitely trans people who you would never know are trans unless they told you, because they pass for cis. And that might convince some of you. But I think arguing that you would only like a trans person if you didn't know they were trans is a poor argument. I think you could be attracted to any trans person, whether they pass or not. I think the main concern that people have in regards to dating a trans person is that they won't have the genitals that they expect. Because
now here's another point. This person's whole argument is in complete ignorance of evolutionary biology. Like, they obviously don't understand the reason most people date and look for someone to date is with the idea of reproduction and procreation. And if I'm a dude and I go and date someone that looks like a chick, but they're trans and have a dick, then in no way can I procreate with that person. And again, that's one of the reasons why, people date in the first place. So the fact that he's just trying to talk about these body parts as if they're just sort of, oh, well, that's whatever. If they have a dick, then you just stick it in their butt. Like, you just keep it moving because they're such a beautiful person on the inside. No, it's null and void. We look for mates to mate to reproduce. So, let's continue.
Because we associate penises with men and vaginas with women, some people think they could never date a trans man with a vagina or a trans woman with a penis. But I think that people are more than their genitals. I think that you could feel attraction to someone without knowing what's between their legs. And if you were...
You see, this is exactly what I meant. How the idea of having a mate for reproduction and family is just... I mean, it's completely ignored. There's no acknowledgement of it. Genitals are just there to play with, like, basically.
To say that you're only attracted to people with vaginas or people with penises, it really feels like you're reducing people just to their genitals. You're kind of objectifying them, but you're thinking of them more as genitals than objects. So
no, I'm thinking of future and a family, and I mean, again, I can belabor that point, but again, you see how it's all these, you're objectifying, you're doing this, this is the stuff with this whole LGBT stuff that I absolutely hate it, where it's like, oh, if you have any sort of preference whatsoever, you're a bad person. You must have no standards. You must be, and people, here's the worst thing, is I feel like there's a negative standard in the gay community that they're all just a bunch of horn dog guys being sluts and everything like that. This doesn't help it by other people saying, well, you're not allowed to have any preference, because if you have a preference, you're discriminating in some way.
So I guess you're kind of genitalifying them? Anyway, my point is, we have implicit biases that we were raised with or that we developed over time, and they can be hard to get rid of. And I think this can be especially prominent within the queer community. Gay men often pride themselves on being disgusted by vaginas, and the same goes for lesbian women with penises. It's difficult because some queer people have built their sexual identities on these repulsions, but I don't think they're innate at all. If you met someone who was extremely attractive, had a great personality, but didn't have the genitals that you wanted, you might be surprised to find that it isn't a deal breaker. As someone who is trans and gay, sometimes people ask me with a very accusatory tone if I would date a girl with a penis. Because there's this stereotype that trans lesbians are just predatory cis men creeping on cis women. But the thing is, I absolutely could be attracted to a woman with a penis. I could be attracted to any woman, cis or trans. If I find you attractive, I don't care what you have down there. But we know that sexual orientations are more innate than learned. They're more nature and less nurture. Gay...
No. Not true. I can bring up the RT born this way. Oh, I put TR. There's lots of studies on this, and this was my main point. This guy is trying to tell you that people can be born gay, and that's something they have no choice over whatsoever. That's not a, deep inherent bias or, anything that you could learn or unlearn or the way you're raised or anything like that. Being gay is, the same as being black to them. It's the original sin of predestination and you being what you're going to be in life regardless of everything else you try to do or anything like that. But everything else is social, and how you're socialized, how you're raised, these biases that you can learn and be unlearned, and we can remold you in our perfect image of society. And it amazes me, the disconnect, and how it's so preferential, where it's like, and I've told gay friends this, and I say, listen, you live in a free country where you're not only allowed to be gay, but you can even get married being gay. I don't necessarily agree with aspects of it. I wish it was handled in a completely different manner, but I'm not against it. But again, for someone to go out and say that everything is how you're raised, basically nurture, everything is nurture, but this one thing is nature, there's a disconnect. And I've told people, wouldn't it just be a lot more empowering to say, I choose to be this way, I want to be this way, and I live in a free country where I can be this way? I think that sounds more empowering than this whole, well, I was born this way, this is who I am. If you don't like it, you're denying my identity. Like that, denying my identity. I'm going to, like, these people talk about it like as if you say, oh, well, you weren't born this way, that they'll just vanish out of thin air. Like as if you must acknowledge my identity and that I exist. And it's like, oh my buddy, get over yourself. It also bothers me the fact that this is even how people identify themselves. Like, I would know younger kids, and their whole way of identifying themselves is that they were gay. Now, if you were to ask me, how do I identify myself? I would be like, oh, well, I'm a musician, a producer, a chef, an artist, a nutritionist. I've a laundry list of skills and trades and everything like that. And I would rather be known by all of those things, the things that I actually have to learn to do and I'm proud of doing, rather than what I do with my dick and in which holes I stick it in, or let alone be like, oh, who are you? Well, I'm a straight male. You're basically defining yourself by your significant other. And it's really sad to me that people go about this way of looking at things, like that who you're dating is more of your identity than who you are. So I'll let the video finish, see if there's anything else interesting I could sort of make commentary on, but those were my main points I wanted to put out there.
Conversion therapy has been proven not to work, but you can unlearn your own prejudices. It just takes time and conscious effort. And the way that we talk about potentially dating trans people has a lot in common with the way we discuss other preferences. Saying that you're not attracted to
and that's the key thing. Conversion therapy. I don't know what's entailed in this conversion therapy, and it might not work. It might not be the answer. But here's the thing, and this is why he can't acknowledge that being gay is as much nurture as everything else. And there's been studies, gay men have very high IQs. It could just be a rebellious pushing the fringe thing because you're, an out-of-the-box type of person. But he can't acknowledge the nurture aspect of the gender orientation or sexual preference thing, because what he's advocating for everything else. See, he's advocating that everything else you are capable of changing, and that we can condition you the right way to not be this way, except this one thing. And you see that's why if he started to acknowledge the nurture on the one end, well, then his theory and what he wants to do for everyone in regards to every other aspect of who they want to date would then be applicable to the gender issues.
Fat people isn't innate. It's informed by a society that tells you that being thin is ideal. Everything in the media
and being fat is unhealthy. So, again, evolutionary biology, is someone going to look for a mate that is unhealthy? No.
You consume is bombarding you with messages that skinny is beautiful and fat is ugly. And even the nicest of people absorb these messages to some degree. But again, if you find someone attractive and really enjoy spending time with them, there's no reason why their weight should be a factor. Especially since we know that the relationship between weight and health is extremely complex, and you really can't make any moral judgments on a person based on their weight. And lastly, let's talk about disabled people. Disabilities come in a very wide range, from being deaf to being in a wheelchair to only having one arm. And I think it's pretty ridiculous to say that you couldn't be attracted attracted to any person who has any of those disabilities. Disabilities can happen to anyone. Someone you're extremely attracted to today could be...
I feel like in this category, he might be talking about straw men that only exist in his head. I don't know if there are people who are outright saying, oh, I could never date a disabled person, because like he said, there's numerous disabilities. Someone could be colorblind or blind. I mean, it's whatever. Like, I'm sure there are people with really low self-esteem who would probably like to date a blind person and would feel more comfortable with that. Again, this bothers me because it's just sort of like this whole idea, like, we need to cookie cutter everyone, equality. We need everyone equal and everyone to live the way that I see fit, because I'm the moral judge, and if you don't live by the rules I've laid out, then you're an objectifying, bigoted, racist, sexist, ableist, whatever.
become disabled tomorrow, and that shouldn't make your attraction to them disappear. Though if it does, it might not be because of them, but rather because you have some preconceived ideas about disabled people that are just inaccurate and harmful. Unsurprisingly, this is another...
Do you think that happens? Do you really think that happens, where people are in love, and next thing you know, like a car accident happens, and someone loses their legs, and next thing you know, the person's like, I'm out? I mean, if that happened, the person didn't love you in the fucking first place.
Another case of the media telling you that a certain group isn't attractive. Disabled people are rarely romantic leads. Their stories in movies and TV shows are often tragic, but that doesn't reflect the reality that disabled people can be happy and have...
You guys already know, I hate this whole narcissistic thing where people need to see themselves in media, and they love the tokenism. They love it just being trotted out in front of them. If they had, like, their own way, the television channels would just be, like, dedicated to, here's the disabled channel, here's the black channel, here's the Hispanic channel, and that's where those people go to see themselves reflected like a mirror. It's like wanting to stare in a mirror all day. It's narcissism to its fullest. I mean, that's why I've been calling, all these people with these names, melanated queen, super melanated, when we were kings, melanoid, like all this. It's like you're a racial narcissist. That's what it is. You aren't a racist. You are a racial narcissist. You are so in love and obsessed with your race that it's your number one priority.
Have dating lives and be attractive. Now, if you're not attracted to someone, you're not attracted to them. I'm not going to tell you that you have to be attracted to this fat person or that trans person or that disabled person. But the more you work at...
Yeah, you're just going to call people names and try to tell them that it's their subconscious inherent biases rather than them choose... I feel like at this point, this guy just basically admitted that he was talking nothing but bullshit for 4 minutes. Like, all this stuff exists in a theory in his head concerning straw men that he makes up. She makes up. They make up.
Unlearning your own prejudices, the more you'll be able to see people from these groups as people rather than...
Unlearning, like, this is the original sin of Marxism. Prejudices. This is how cozy a society we have. People used to worry about whether they were going to eat or not. Now we're worried about people's subconscious biases.
Than tired stereotypes. Unlearning our own biases doesn't happen overnight, and I don't have a step-by-step instruction guide for you. But I think if you can accept that these prejudices exist in all of us, even you can identify them when they come up and work to change how you think about them. It will most likely be a long, slow process, but I think it's worth it. Because
Let me just throw out a hypothetical here. Let's just say everyone has these prejudices. What's the problem? Oh, there's a racist guy? Let him go be racist off in the corner alone. It'll be a sad, lonely life. That's how I really view people. I can't get on this crusader fucking bullshit. Like, if there are people who feel this sort of way, alright, let them feel that sort of way. Enjoy the free country. There's room for everyone. If people want to be ignorant and morons, let them be ignorant and morons. But the moment you want to start forcing your worldview on everyone else and trying to tell them how they should or shouldn't live, that's when we have a problem. And that's what this guy is very lovingly trying to articulate, that everyone should be like him.
These dating preferences are ultimately harmful to people who don't fit into your box of what a conventionally attractive person looks like.
See, and here, again with the disconnect, he's not trying to say if you don't like these things that, you know, it's bad or you're a bad person. But if you don't like these things, it is harmful. Like, it just does, it goes from one to the other, to the other, to the other. It doesn't make sense. And it's so sad that this person doesn't realize that they don't make any sense.
It makes people feel isolated, alone, and unwanted to hear that they're universally unattractive to people. I don't think...
Who's saying that? Who is telling these people that they... I mean, if anything, it's this person propagating this idea that there are people out there that think this way, and they know it because they obviously have this telepathy power where they're all up in everyone's subconscious.
I don't think there's anyone out there who somebody doesn't find attractive. We're sold this image of the conventionally attractive person, but in reality, all kinds of people around the world are constantly dating, having sex, finding people attractive, getting married. It's not only the conventionally attractive who find love or have sex.
So then what was the whole point of this video? You just admitted there was no problem. I don't get it.
By working on ourselves to dispel that idea, we can make the world a more welcoming and loving place for everybody.
Is this projection? I'm starting to get this vibe. I'm starting to get this vibe that this person has serious biases and that they need to keep reminding themselves, and they're putting this out there hoping that there are others like them.
No matter how they look. This video is a part of my Feminism with Riley series that I'm doing in collaboration with Everyday Feminism, a website dedicated to helping you stand up to and break down everyday oppression. Be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe for more videos about various feminist topics. Thanks so much.
Oh god. Well, that explains that. So, nothing else to say on this one. Have a good one, guys.